Mistaking constant self-improvement for progress is one of the most subtle yet powerful traps people fall into on their personal growth journey. It often begins with good intentions. A person wants to improve themselves, become more disciplined, more confident, more successful, more knowledgeable. They start reading books, listening to podcasts, watching motivational videos, attending seminars, and following inspiring mentors or speakers online. At first, this exposure feels energizing and empowering. Every new idea sounds life-changing. Every philosophy feels like the key they were missing, and every strategy promises transformation. But slowly, without realizing it, some people begin to replace real growth with the illusion of growth. They immerse themselves so deeply in self-improvement material that learning itself becomes the destination rather than the doorway to action. They are constantly preparing, constantly absorbing, constantly reflecting, yet rarely applying. The mind becomes busy, but life remains unchanged. This phenomenon happens because consuming self-improvement content often feels productive, even when it leads nowhere. Reading a book about discipline feels almost like being disciplined. Watching a video about courage feels almost like being courageous. Taking notes about success feels almost like moving toward success. The brain enjoys this feeling of psychological progress because it requires no risk, no discomfort, and no exposure to failure. A person can sit comfortably in their room imagining the future version of themselves, imagining the results they will one day achieve, imagining the habits they will eventually form, and this imagination gives them an emotional reward similar to real accomplishment. Over time, they become addicted to the emotional high of learning, planning, and dreaming instead of the grounded reality of acting, failing, adjusting, and trying again. This is where self-improvement slowly turns into a form of escapism. Instead of confronting fears, insecurities, or challenges, people hide behind endless preparation. They say things like, "I'm still researching," "I'm waiting for the right time," "I need to learn a little more before I start," or "I'm not ready yet." They believe that one more book, one more course, one more motivational speech will finally give them the clarity or confidence they lack. But in truth, what they are avoiding is not lack of knowledge. It is the discomfort that comes with real-world action. Starting the business means risking failure. Speaking up for themselves means risking rejection. Trying a new path means stepping into uncertainty. Letting go of a bad habit means facing emotional resistance. So instead of acting, they stay in preparation mode, convincing themselves that they are being responsible and productive, when in reality they are avoiding the very experiences that would create real growth. The danger of this cycle is that it feels rational and even admirable from the outside. Society praises learning, ambition, and personal development. Friends and family may see someone constantly reading, studying, and talking about goals and assume they are highly motivated and disciplined. The person themselves may genuinely believe they are making progress because their mind is full of new concepts and insights. But progress in the mind is not the same as progress in life. Reading about confidence does not build confidence. Watching others succeed does not create success. Understanding productivity does not automatically make someone productive. Transformation is not intellectual. It is behavioral. It is something that happens through repeated actions, through consistent effort, through experiences that stretch and challenge a person beyond their comfort zone. Real growth is often uncomfortable, messy, and uncertain. It involves making mistakes, being misunderstood, feeling awkward, and confronting limitations. It means waking up earlier even when motivation is gone, saying no to distractions even when they are tempting, practicing a skill even when results are slow, and continuing even when progress feels invisible. None of this is glamorous or exciting compared to watching a powerful motivational video or imagining a successful future. That is why many people subconsciously choose to remain in the safer world of ideas. In that world, everything is controlled, everything is inspiring, everything feels possible, but nothing is tested. Outside, in reality, every step requires courage, effort, and vulnerability, and that is exactly where growth takes place. Another reason people confuse self-improvement consumption with progress is because they misunderstand the role of knowledge. Knowledge alone does not change people. Applied knowledge does. Someone may know exactly how to become healthier, how to improve relationships, how to build wealth, or how to develop discipline, yet still struggle because they do not translate that knowledge into consistent behavior. True wisdom is not measured by how much a person knows, but by how much of what they know is visible in their actions. A small amount of knowledge practiced daily is far more powerful than endless knowledge that never leaves the mind. Over time, this pattern of learning without doing can weaken a person's confidence instead of strengthening it. When someone constantly absorbs powerful ideas but fails to apply them, they begin to feel a gap between who they are and who they believe they should be. They start to feel guilty, overwhelmed, or frustrated with themselves. They may begin thinking, why do I still struggle when I know so much about self-improvement? Or why can't I change even though I understand what I should do? This inner conflict slowly erodes self-trust. They stop believing in their ability to act on their own intentions and instead become more dependent on external motivation. They rely on inspirational content to feel motivated rather than cultivating self-discipline through consistent effort. Motivation has its value, but it is temporary by nature. It rises and fades. Discipline, however, is built through repeated action, especially when motivation is absent. Many people never develop discipline because they never stay with an action long enough to build it. They restart, rethink, replan, reconsume, always beginning the journey mentally but never committing to it physically. As a result, they remain in a permanent state of potential instead of progress. The truth is that self-improvement is not meant to be a refuge from reality. It is meant to be a bridge to it. The purpose of a lesson is to be lived, not just understood. The purpose of a strategy is to be executed, not admired. Growth happens when a person takes what they have learned and brings it into their daily choices, their habits, their relationships, and their responsibilities. Even imperfect action produces more growth than perfect planning. Even a small, clumsy first step carries more transformative power than months of theoretical preparation. Sometimes the bravest step in self-improvement is not reading another book, but finally acting on the last one. It is not finding more motivation, but moving forward without it. It is not waiting to feel ready, but accepting that readiness comes after action, not before it. Every meaningful life change begins at the moment someone decides to stop rehearsing their future and start participating in it. Real transformation is built through vulnerability, the willingness to try, to risk failure, to experience discomfort, and to face the unknown. It is shaped by experience, not by inspiration alone. Mistakes, setbacks, and struggles are not signs of failure in the growth process. They are the very vehicles through which growth occurs. A person who makes mistakes while trying is growing far more than someone who avoids mistakes by never acting at all. The fear of failing often keeps people trapped in learning mode, but what they do not realize is that the absence of failure can also mean the absence of progress. To break free from self-improvement as escapism, a person must shift their focus from accumulation to application, from collecting ideas to living them. Instead of asking, what more do I need to learn? They should ask, what am I doing with what I already know? Instead of measuring growth by how inspired they feel, they should measure it by how they behave when inspiration fades. Instead of seeking more clarity before acting, they should understand that clarity deepens through action. Growth requires courage. Courage to start when the path is unclear. Courage to continue when results are slow. Courage to fail, to adjust, to try again, to keep moving forward. Self-improvement should not be a shield that protects someone from discomfort. It should be a force that encourages them to step into it. The real meaning of self-improvement is not becoming a person who knows more, but becoming a person who lives differently because of what they know. When self-improvement returns to its true purpose, guiding action rather than replacing it, it becomes a powerful tool for transformation. Life begins to change not because someone has read more or listened more, but because they have finally done more. And in that moment, progress stops being something imagined in the mind and starts becoming something experienced in reality where growth belongs. Trying to fix everything at once is one of the most exhausting and discouraging mistakes people make in their self-improvement journey. It usually starts with a burst of motivation or a moment of realization. A person looks at their life and suddenly becomes aware of everything they want to change: their habits, mindset, discipline, health, productivity, relationships, finances, and lifestyle. Instead of choosing one meaningful starting point, they attempt to transform everything at the same time. They create massive plans, detailed schedules, strict routines, and ambitious goals. For a short while, the excitement feels powerful and energizing. It feels like a dramatic turning point, like a new version of themselves has finally arrived. But the pressure of trying to change their entire life in one overwhelming leap eventually becomes too heavy to sustain. When reality fails to match their expectations, frustration slowly replaces motivation and progress collapses under the weight of perfection. This happens because people often believe that growth must be dramatic to be meaningful. They want instant transformation, instant discipline, instant confidence, and instant results. They imagine waking up one day as a completely different person, highly organized, focused, motivated, and in control of every area of life. So instead of taking one small step, they attempt to jump 10 steps at once. They try to wake up earlier, work longer, develop multiple habits, change their attitude, improve relationships, and restructure their lifestyle, all within a very short time frame. At first, this intense push feels inspiring, but it is not sustainable because willpower is not designed to support extreme simultaneous change. The mind and body become overwhelmed long before real growth can take root. Meaningful improvement rarely collapses because of lack of motivation. It collapses because of unrealistic expectations. When people expect rapid transformation, they interpret normal setbacks as failure rather than as part of the learning process. If they miss one workout, they assume their fitness journey is ruined. If they break one habit, they feel like they have lost all progress. If they fail to maintain a perfectly structured routine, they decide they are undisciplined or incapable. Instead of adjusting, they abandon everything completely. In trying to do too much at once, they build a fragile foundation where consistency cannot survive. Real change requires patience, but perfection demands immediacy, and impatience is what ultimately destroys momentum. The truth is that growth is not a dramatic revolution of identity. It is a slow evolution of behavior. Change does not come from transforming everything overnight, but from strengthening one habit at a time. When people try to reinvent themselves in one giant effort, they overload their emotional energy, mental focus, and self-control. Willpower is a limited resource, and spreading it across every area of life at once drains it faster than progress can grow. That is why so many people feel burnt out only a few weeks into their self-improvement journey. They do not fail because they are weak. They fail because they tried to carry too much change too quickly. Another hidden danger of trying to fix everything at once is that it shifts the mindset from progress to perfection. Instead of valuing small, steady improvements, people begin to judge themselves by impossible standards. Every flaw becomes magnified, every mistake becomes unbearable, and every imperfect moment feels like proof that they are not improving. Self-improvement loses its meaning and becomes a constant internal battle. Rather than appreciating how far they are progressing, they constantly criticize themselves for not being perfect yet. This perfection-driven mindset does not inspire growth. It suffocates it. When people chase a flawless version of themselves, they stop appreciating the imperfect process that actually leads to transformation. Real growth, however, is not clean or linear. It is full of pauses, setbacks, experiments, and adjustments. It involves learning through repetition rather than rapid change. A deeply ingrained habit cannot be replaced overnight because identity does not shift overnight. Identity changes when repeated behavior reshapes how a person sees themselves. A person becomes disciplined not by planning to be disciplined in every area at once, but by consistently following through through in one area until discipline becomes part of who they are. Consistency slowly rewires behavior, and behavior slowly reshapes identity. One of the most powerful truths in self-improvement is that small, consistent actions compound over time. A tiny daily habit may seem insignificant in the beginning, but it creates momentum, confidence, and psychological proof that a person is capable of change. That small success builds self-trust, and self-trust becomes the foundation for larger growth. But when a person tries to change everything at once, they never experience this sense of steady progress. Instead of feeling empowered, they feel defeated. Instead of celebrating what they have improved, they feel burdened by what they still have not achieved. Consistency beats intensity because consistency builds resilience. Intense bursts of motivation can create quick action, but they cannot sustain long-term transformation. A person who makes small improvements every day for years grows far more than someone who makes massive changes for a few days and then quits. The real challenge is not to change quickly, but to change consistently enough that growth becomes woven into everyday life instead of existing only during short periods of inspiration. Many people do not realize that trying to fix everything at once is also a form of impatience with themselves. They are not simply trying to improve. They are trying to erase every past mistake, every weakness, every regret in one sweeping effort. They want to escape who they used to be instead of slowly becoming someone better through steady effort. But rushing growth does not heal the past. It only creates pressure in the present. Growth requires compassion toward oneself, an understanding that transformation takes time, effort, and experience. Without patience, self-improvement turns into self-punishment. Another problem with perfection-driven growth is that it makes people feel as though change only matters when it is big, dramatic, and visible. They overlook quiet progress, improved self-awareness, better decision-making, healthier boundaries, increased emotional control, or improved patience because these changes do not feel grand enough to celebrate. Yet these subtle shifts are often the most powerful indicators of real transformation. They represent internal strength rather than temporary behavior change. When growth becomes tied to dramatic results, however, people fail to notice these deeper developments and assume they are not improving at all. Trying to change everything at once also prevents people from understanding themselves. When all areas of life are being forced into sudden transformation, it becomes impossible to observe which habits truly align with personal values, goals, or lifestyle. Instead of learning gradually from experience, people chase idealized versions of success they see in books, social media, or motivational speeches. They attempt to copy entire routines, identities, or lifestyles without giving themselves time to discover what genuinely works for them. Sustainable self-improvement requires self-awareness, and self-awareness develops through slow reflection, not rushed transformation. There is a deep strength in accepting that growth is gradual. It allows a person to breathe, to progress without pressure, to make mistakes without giving up, and to build habits that last rather than habits that burn out. Progress becomes less about controlling every detail of life and more about steadily improving how one shows up each day. When people focus on one meaningful change at a time, they experience real accomplishment instead of emotional exhaustion. That accomplishment fuels motivation naturally without forcing it. The most powerful transformations rarely happen through intense bursts of effort. They happen when small disciplines become part of daily identity, when consistency replaces urgency, when patience replaces self-criticism, and when a person understands that becoming better is a lifelong journey rather than a quick personal upgrade. Trying to fix everything at once leads to discouragement, but improving one step at a time leads to deep, authentic, sustainable change. When people let go of perfection and commit to consistency, they stop chasing the fantasy of instant transformation and begin experiencing the quiet strength of real progress. They discover that growth is not about becoming flawless. It is about becoming a little better today than yesterday and trusting that those small improvements repeated over time will shape the person they are destined to become.